Number 1. Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Intervlog, your global channel of reflection, reason, and realism. Today, we turn our focus to a bold and defining decision emerging from the heart of the Sahel. On the 22nd day of September, the Alliance of Sahel States, known as the AES, comprising Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, jointly announced their withdrawal from the International Court, the ICC. This announcement, though not entirely unexpected, reverberated across global diplomatic corridors. It marked yet another collective move by the three allied nations to redefine their sovereignty and reimagine their place in the global order. For some, it is a symbol of liberation, a declaration that Africa will no longer be judged by others' rules. For others, it raises difficult questions about justice, accountability, and victims' rights. But for Intervlog, today's reflection is not to condemn or to glorify, but to understand. As the French proverb goes, "Celui qui ne sait pas d'où il vient, ne saura pas où il va." He who does not know where he comes from will not know where he is going. To comprehend the magnitude of this decision, we must recall that this is not an isolated event. It follows a sequence of deliberate acts by the Alliance of Sahel States. Acts that progressively distance them from global and regional systems perceived as neo-imperial. 7 months earlier, in a similar joint communiqué, the AES formally withdrew from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and from the ECOWAS Court of Justice. Their reason was clear. The leaders, Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, General Abdourahmane Tiani of Niger, and Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali, argued that ECOWAS had lost its neutrality and had become an instrument of external pressure, especially in response to the military-led governments of the Sahel. Now, by leaving the ICC, they are reinforcing their stance that sovereignty must not be shared, borrowed, or supervised by external institutions. Their communiqué, issued by President Assimi Goïta in his capacity as the current rotating president of the AES, declared that the three countries will henceforth rely on local and endogenous mechanisms to consolidate peace, pursue justice, and combat impunity. This means that justice, according to them, must be rooted in local soil, nourished by the culture, history, and social realities of the Sahel, not imported or imposed from The Hague. At the heart of their withdrawal lies a deep and long-standing accusation that the ICC practices selective justice. This argument is not new. Between 2009 and 2015, the African Union and several African heads of state accused the ICC of unfairly targeting African leaders while ignoring alleged crimes committed by powerful non-African actors. During that period, all the active investigations and prosecutions of the ICC involved African countries. The perception of bias was so widespread that at one point a mass withdrawal of African countries was discussed under the African Union's framework. Although that exodus never happened, the scars of mistrust never healed. In 2022, Amnesty International itself warned that the ICC's credibility was at risk due to double standards, real or perceived. To the AES, the message is simple. The system cannot be fair if it is not universal. Mali's Prime Minister, Abdoulaye Maïga, speaking at the United Nations General Assembly, said that the alliance supports a multilateral system, but only if all countries are part of it. For them, global justice must mean equal justice, not a pyramid where some stand above the law while others face its sharpest edge. As an African proverb reminds us, "Quand le lion se met à raconter son histoire, la chasse aura une autre version." When the lion tells his story, the history of the hunt changes. The Sahel's new leaders have repeatedly voiced a message of self-reliance and African dignity. Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, often seen as the ideological face of this movement, has gained enormous popularity across Africa through his Pan-Africanist speeches that reject what he calls Western imperialism. From the IMF to the World Bank, from ECOWAS to the ICC, his rhetoric questions why African nations should remain under systems they did not design, and which often fail to defend them in moments of crisis. His message resonates across the continent, especially among young Africans who are increasingly skeptical of international institutions that appear distant from their realities. In Mali and Niger, similar sentiments are shared. Both countries have experienced years of conflict, foreign intervention, and political instability, yet little relief from global justice mechanisms. To many in these nations, the ICC is not seen as a symbol of justice, but as a symbol of interference. And so Traoré, Goïta, and Tiani's joint stance is interpreted by supporters as a defense of African pride. Mieux vaut mourir debout que de vivre à genoux, says a saying popular in Burkina Faso. Better to die standing than to live on one's knees. Observers note that this decision did not come suddenly. As early as June of this year, the AES had announced its intention to establish a Sahel Criminal and Human Rights Court, a regional tribunal designed to address human rights violations and war crimes within its own framework. Analysts now recognize that this initiative was the first concrete step toward the ICC withdrawal. In their view, it was a declaration of intent to replace dependence with autonomy. The AES insists that its proposed court will be immune from the negative influence of imperialist powers on the organization and functioning of certain regional and international jurisdictional bodies. This sentence, though diplomatically phrased, reflects a deep distrust of Western-dominated institutions. Yet human rights organizations have expressed concern. They warn that without independent oversight, local mechanisms could risk politicization and might fail to protect victims effectively. Their argument is that while sovereignty is important, justice must remain impartial. Intervlog acknowledges this concern, but also notes that the AES states are pursuing a broader principle, the right to build their own systems, free from the weight of external control. Sometimes sovereignty carries risk, but, as another proverb reminds us, celui qui veut le miel doit supporter les piqûres des abeilles. He who wants honey must bear the stings of bees. Beyond the legal and institutional dimensions, the AES's collective withdrawal carries a symbolic weight that extends across Africa. It says to the continent, we are capable of defining justice on our own terms. For decades, African leaders and thinkers have debated how to balance international cooperation with national independence. The AES's latest action tilts that balance decisively toward autonomy. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have chosen unity, not in submission, but in solidarity. They act as one body, with one voice, one vision. They remind the world that in unity, even small nations can redefine global conversations. Their courage invites reflection among other African states. What they seem to ask is the true meaning of independence if critical decisions are still influenced from abroad? Should Africa's future be judged by institutions that have never stood on its soil, or by systems born from within the continent itself? To all African nations, from Dakar to Dar es Salaam, from Nairobi to Abuja, the AES's move poses a silent question. Can we reclaim justice without losing accountability? Can we create institutions that reflect African values, fairness, community, and reconciliation, rather than punishment alone? Here at Intervlog, we reflect not to judge, but to understand. The decision of the AES can be interpreted in two ways, as defiance or as development. Perhaps it is both. By rejecting selective justice, the AES is asserting that justice must serve the people, not power. By creating local courts, they are reintroducing a system where the victim is not a distant statistic, but a known neighbor. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger share more than borders. They share pain, history, and hope. They have endured coups, yet from the same struggles, they have discovered unity. L'union fait la force, they say. Unity makes strength. This unity now extends beyond security alliances to judicial philosophy. Whether one agrees with their methods or not, the conviction behind their decision deserves attention. Critics argue that the ICC was never meant to replace national courts, but to complement them. They fear that withdrawal could leave a vacuum of accountability, especially where national justice systems are weak. In Burkina Faso and Mali, where conflict-related crimes have occurred, victims may lose a neutral forum for redress. The ICC's founding principles, that no one is above the law, that complementary jurisdictions empower victims, and that reparations must remain possible, are indeed important. But so too is the principle that no nation should be forever subordinate to another's definition of justice. In truth, the question before Africa is not whether the ICC is good or bad, but whether Africa is ready to build something better. It is ironic that the same countries that now reject the ICC were among the earliest to embrace it. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger were among the first African nations to sign and ratify the Rome Statute in 1998. Back then, they stood as champions of international justice. Today, they stand as pioneers of a new regional justice, a Sahelian model. History turns in cycles. In the late 20th century, Africa sought inclusion in the global system. In the 21st century, it seeks emancipation from its constraints. The AES withdrawal is thus both a departure and a declaration, a departure from dependency and a declaration of autonomy. While the withdrawal has been declared immediate, the Rome Statute provides a 12-month notice period before it takes effect. This means the exit will be finalized in September of next year. During this time, the AES could, in theory, reverse its decision, but given its past actions, that appears unlikely. After all, when the AES left ECOWAS, it did not look back. Instead, it forged ahead to create new frameworks, a Sahelian confederation, shared defense systems, and integrated economic strategies. These moves reflect not rebellion, but reorientation, a shift from dependency to dignity. And in this, there is a lesson for all African nations, that unity, though difficult, remains the most powerful shield against external manipulation. So where does this leave Africa? And what can others learn from the AES? Perhaps the lesson is that true sovereignty demands courage to act, even when misunderstood. Traoré, Goïta, and Tiani have chosen a path that is neither simple nor popular, but they have chosen it together. And that unity itself is a statement. Africa must watch closely, not to copy blindly, but to learn boldly. For what the Sahel teaches us is that justice must have a local heartbeat. Institutions must be close enough for people to believe in them, and fair enough for the world to respect them. As the French say, petit à petit, l'oiseau fait son nid. Little by little, the bird builds its nest. The AES is building, not yet finished, not yet perfect, but building something of its own. And perhaps that is how true independence begins. Ladies and gentlemen, the Alliance of Sahel States has drawn a line in the sand, not to divide, but to define. Their departure from the ICC is not merely a legal act, it is a philosophical stand. It forces the world to confront a timeless dilemma between sovereignty and accountability, between independence and interdependence. The journey ahead will test their resolve. But history may one day record that on this path, Africa began to reclaim not only its resources, but its right to judge itself. From Ouagadougou to Bamako, from Niamey to all of Africa, the wind of change is blowing. An Intervlog will be here, watching, reflecting, and narrating. Le vent ne brise pas l'arbre qui plie. The wind does not break the tree that bends. This is Intervlog. Thank you for watching. Stay thoughtful, stay informed, and stay united. This is the end of our program today. See you on Intervlog, same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thank you for watching Intervlog. Thank you.